What is going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a good Thursday. My Bobby Fi here with Brandon Cruz. We are going to be talking about tonight's NFL showdown slate. I'll probably drop a couple of things about NBA in there, and Brandon's the big winner. So we're gonna take what he says seriously. This guy's been on fire, and big wins last night. And Brandon, talk a little bit about that. Congratulations again, and then we'll get into the slate.
Yeah, if you guys were tuned into the live sweat last night, I ended up having a pretty decent run and tied for first in the 12 gamer, and then finished second in the night slate. Obviously, first big slate of the NBA season, and normally I don't even play the big slates, but if you're going to be playing NBA, which yesterday I knew it'd be a day that I would just be by my computer. I just late swapped every 30 minutes before every set of games. I was busy doing other stuff as well, so I don't exactly know how I was performing throughout the evening. All I know is, when I got free, during the second half of the late games, I was able to watch Anthony Edwards pretty much carry me to try and finish first.
That was pretty awesome.
But I'm using Goldie's projections, Goldie's and Sheets. I typically use Sheets' projection before the slate locks. If he doesn't have any, I use Goldie's, and then I use SaberSim throughout the late swap. But everything we have on the site is what I use for all my stuff that I do.
Yeah, and just to talk about that, we've been on fire here, guys, and I hope you guys can take a real look at what we're doing. We have a lot of different offerings. We've got the pay dirt offering. We've got we've got all the SaberSim stuff, combined with Sheets and Goldie's projections, which are unbelievable, as well as all of Brandon's content, all of my stuff, my exact exposures every night, everything that Rhodey's playbook for football. We got a lot of great things going on. I really think we're worth taking a look at. Look, we have a different site. We only have a few people who are here who are working for us, who are players or whatever. And we've really built something that's been incredibly fruitful for a lot of us. So we really hope you guys are taking a look. I did want to mention that before we get into the slate tonight. All right, Brandon, getting down to it. Anything that look, we're still waiting on official things, so not everything's been, I've run my stuff, but I'm going to have to rerun it again. I've made some tweaks. I'm going to have to probably tweak a couple things again after we get the official injury report, because you never know where it ends up. But curious where you're sort of ending up captain-wise. Are you playing on FanDuel as well?
No, so I'm kind of, oddly enough, when they do have their rake back stuff, I am playing. Mm-hmm. But now I'm like super incentivized to be on DK, because I have a VIP rep. Before I even got to Diamond too, I got into that program like a couple weeks ago. So I'm kind of just staying on DraftKings just for the sake of that. In terms of the game tonight, obviously I want to wait for inactives, because typically that's pretty important for just so I don't play a $200 player who just isn't playing. But what's interesting about this slate is I think obviously everything's going to be pointing to Jefferson and Justin Herbert for the highest scoring guys. But I firmly believe that somebody on the Chargers is going to go off. Usually I usually don't spread captains out too much in NFL Showdown. But I actually like all three of the receivers from the Chargers. And I just, in a situation like this where there's really obviously there's a wide receiver one and stuff, but there's really just no favorite for who can go off on any individual game. I think just targeting Allen, I just am blanking the other two guys. I'm not looking at them right now. But I think those are the three guys that I'm going to be focusing on for my builds. Also, secondly, with how expensive Justin Jefferson is and how expensive the quarterbacks are, I think naturally we are not going to see an expensive captain be the optimal one today, especially if we end up having, obviously, I don't know if Aaron Jones was activated off of injury reserve. I haven't looked at that yet. Obviously, we'll figure it out in the next 2 minutes when I look at it. But we have a question mark on him, a question mark on Mason. I just don't think an expensive captain is the way to go today.
Yeah, interesting. I do want to address something, because Jason says he posted something, a screenshot with a question in Discord. What's your question? I don't see anything in your Discord. What channel is it in? What sport is it in? Where is your question? I'm happy to address it, but it's impossible to know what you're talking about, because I don't see anything. That's other people have written things in, but to try and track down through every one of our Discord channels would be probably take longer than we're going to do this show for. So just drop your question in again, Jason.
This is I'm assuming it's JP3.
Oh, okay, that's who it is. Okay,
and
which was the question? Where is it?
Okay, so and I'm just answering this because
let me know where the question is. So
it's in the NBA channel. So I honestly,
there. Okay.
I know this is going to sound backwards, right? Obviously, I use the projection source that we have here, but I really don't weigh goldies or sheets one above the other. It's more so just whoever was up when I was building. Specifically for NBA, I went like last minute stuff. I don't think, because this is the question for those that are in here. He's asking me to clarify. Before lock, did I use Goldie yesterday? Then after the first set of games, I changed the projection from Goldie to SaberSim and stuff like that. Once a slate locks, for me, I want whatever projection source I want to use before. That's the ownership. That's the projection. I want them from the same group. So whether that's SaberSim's default projections, Sheets's, Goldie's, doesn't matter. I just want whatever projection source that I trust or want to use entering a slate. That's what I used before. But because SaberSim has the tools that I'm using to build, once the slate locks, their software is able to then look at my entries, specifically see the ownership that I would have for players in the future games on top of the ownership that the rest of the field has on players that are already locked. I don't want to use another projection source outside of SaberSim stuff because their portfolio manager and their projections and ownership projections are specifically working off of what the slate has once it's live. Okay, that's what SaberSim is built, their late swap tool to work with. So I'm never using a projection source that isn't SaberSim once I'm doing my late swap stuff.
Yeah. Just to be honest for myself, I don't ever touch Goldie or Sheets' stuff when it comes to basketball. I only use SaberSim, and if you are trying to use it after lock, you're wrong. You can never be right. You're going to end up with players who aren't playing. Nothing is going to be able to keep up with. In NBA, look, it's early in the season, but last night you would have been completely dead, basically, if you weren't late swap. I mean, in general, you know what? If you don't late swap, you're dead in general. And SaberSim is going to be the only one keeping up fast enough. And even they're not going to be able to keep it up fast enough. Like, for example, Edwards was legit questionable 5 times that coach announced it during the night last night. He tends to play through him. So I know that, so I didn't shift things. But the usual me, when you see that kind of stuff in NBA, bump up, the other guy, bump up DiVincenzo and Randall and everybody else to make sure you have some exposure. You can tweak after the things lock, and you can use Goldie and Sheets as a reference point. That's what I do a lot of. And you can go back to seeing where they have the projections. But remember, if anybody's out in the NBA, the entire slate changes every single time. Dominic Barlow started, and he was on your team. He was on most of my teams, or probably 40% by the time things were locked or whatever. He was 2% or 3% owned, and he was starting, and nobody caught up with him starting at center for Philly. And they all played the other guy, which was fine. The who did really well as well, the Charlotte guy. But you're just dead if you don't do it. And all your points are really good, but the main point is there's no projection system in the world that's going to be able to be faster than SaberSim in terms of updating, and even they're not going to be up to it. So you're going to have to speculate sometimes in those situations.
Yeah, and then secondly onto that, like a projection source, especially an ownership projection source, is dead on arrival once the slate locks. Like whatever is projected for doesn't even matter once we have the actual numbers, which is why And one thing that I even do, instead of just opening SaberSim and late swapping stuff, I always grab my entry file from DraftKings and just re-upload it to make sure everything is as accurate as possible.
I do the same quite often. I don't like this. A lot of times there's no chance to. You have to react as quickly as possible. That's the whole point. That's why you don't use them. And again, you can use Goldies as a starting point. You can use Sheets. Just be aware, there's going to be plenty of times where guys are scratched they're not going to have on there. So I would not do that. I actually really, really am adamantly would not be using those projections except for as reference points. And they're great reference points. If there's players you like and or things you're interested in, you want to see the difference in some main players who are in, that's where you want to tweak it a little bit. For example, last night, just use another example. I talked on our show yesterday about Wemby because we're getting other questions about this stuff too. I talked about Wemby being this is it was a ridiculously low projection. They had a projected 51 fantasy points. Now, he literally could have had 100 if the game was close. But the point is, there's going to be places where the projections are a little bit missed, and some people had Wemby as high as 58 projected, and some people had him as 50 and 51. So it really does matter. But in that case, if you don't have somebody, and again, I'll always tell you what I'm doing, but if you don't have somebody to do that, try to at least look at Goldies or Sheets and say, does that make sense on certain players that you thought you might be getting more of or less of, and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And what Bill is saying, there's a lot of times no chance to maneuver. You have to maneuver. I'll tell you this: if you don't late swap in NBA, I don't think you have any chance to be a profitable player. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have a profitable night or a big win, but I don't think you have any chance to be a consistently profitable player.
Yeah, no, not at all. And also adding on, which is why I really, I really like. This is where, like, if you have a slow computer, I mean, SaberSim's awesome, but just like any any service on Chrome iOS or like Discord and stuff, it's very, very CPU heavy. I know on this laptop, it takes me about 2.5 minutes to rebuild lineups in Sim, whereas the computer that I have at my house that has an i9 in it, it takes me about 45 seconds to do everything I need to do. But whenever I'm late swapping and stuff, say if a game starts at 6 or whatever, and then there's another set of games at 6:30, 7 or whatever, I'm usually uploading my late swaps at like 6:28, 6:29, right before the other one's locked, because that's giving the most amount of time for everything to go through. That's why NBA is like that. That's why it's so difficult. Like if you aren't, and that's why I don't typically like the big slates, because if you aren't able to sit there and make late swaps, every half hour, not even like on the bottom, like every 30 minutes, before the next round of games, like you're drawing dead. Like I literally have alarms on my phone going off to remind me, hey, it's 6:21. I need to make sure I late swap and stuff. Like if you're not doing that and you're not prepared to do that, like NBA is not the sport for you to play, or play the smaller slates, but you cannot afford to play the big contests and not do that.
Absolutely. And you're going to have exceptions where, like, on 2-game slates, it's a little less important. You know what I mean? You could get away with it on tonight's slate for NBA. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get away with it. And by the way, what I said about Cheats and Goldies projections, throw that out for football. Just make sure you have the most recent. After the injury reports, it'll take about 5 minutes. Goldie, we have a little trigger in our channels that tells you exactly when they're updated. And you'll see it on SaberSim as well. You can go ahead and use Sheets and Goldies projections. I love for golf. I love for baseball. I love for football. I use them as a reference point for NBA because of the unusual nature of the sport, and because so much of the work is done after late swap. So I'll change projections to get what I want. I usually start at like 15 minutes. So really for me, it's I never really leave my chair. You know what I mean? In the NBA night, you start at 7 Eastern, and then you go until the last game starts, because every 15 minutes I'm running things and I'm like, oh, I'm not getting as much of that. I wonder why that's happening. And I'll take a look on some of my bigger buy-ins and stuff like that. And then I'll make little tweaks to the guys I like. I usually have a list of like 7 or 8 guys on an NBA slate that I like more than the field does. And I'll bump their projections a point or two, enough to get me what I want. So that's just a way to go. Hopefully that's helpful. I think it is. And I appreciate what Jay said. But this is the kind of stuff we talk a lot about, certain plays, and people want to hear that. No, the real trick of the game is trying to figure out your process. And Sheets talks about this a lot, and really, really trying to tweak your process to be the most, optimal for yourself that you can. Anyway, we can get into the actual slate and what to do here, but I think this stuff is really good, and we're probably going to have to repeat ourselves on it, just because of the things go these days. It's hard to keep up with everything. And the real question about Naheem Hine-Miller, I like the play a lot more than the field does. I think it's very speculative with Chargers and their running backs. But I do think that, like, Vidal has been fine for them. He was really good the first game, but they have not been fine. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw them, maybe Hines-Miller getting a few more targets tonight than you think. I did bump him up a tiny bit, and I made sure I had at least the minimum of him in the flex. All right, so Jason, again, real quick before we get into this, I'm just new, so I love it, Jason. I'm totally with you, and when I talk very emphatically. There's never a part of it that's meant to be criticizing you or anything. I want it to be burn in your brain. This is something you can't do and get away with, because and also that's just the way that I speak. But I'm not criticizing. I love the question. Sheets was really happy too. He was saying to me last night, he's like, it's great to see people in the Discord with new thoughts and process questions rather than just, we like this guy, we like this guy. And, you know, in the end, you will be a more profitable player once you figure out the processes. And that's why I appreciate the questions, Jason. Anyway, with that said, what are you getting to tonight, Brandon, as far as captains go, as far as flex? I liked your original take, but you mentioned spreading out at captain. Do you still have like certain favorites?
Yeah, it's still I'm trying to finish this stupid this hockey stuff really fast. No, but I'm just letting it.
I forgot you're in every sport.
I don't even like. I mean, straight up, like if you were watching the live show last night, I literally didn't even know who was on what team. Like I literally I literally don't know like anything related to like stick and ball sports. I just see people as like numbers in spreadsheets. So I gotta see these names again. I think it's mainly, like I said, I really like Quentin Johnson, Allen, and Mr. McClunky, Ladd. We'll call him Ladd.
Yeah, Ladd and McClunky.
Though I think those three are the guys for me, especially in a 150 set. I don't necessarily want 50 lineups of each. I'm just going to use whatever it gives me. But those are the three that I want to use. If gun to my head, I kind of like the fact that Ladd has like kind of underperformed, and these other two guys have kind of jumped him a little bit. But I just like the Chargers side of this more from a flex perspective. Obviously, Justin Herbert, and with how well the kickers have been performing this year. I mean, I know when we just look at the averages of what each of these kickers are doing, like Dicker has gone from 17.65, and I'm just stat logging here for the sake of what I'm saying here, but I pretty much look at every kicker projected for like 8.5 points on nearly any slate, because we're seeing a lot of more people kick 50-yarders. We're seeing a lot of teams, like obviously if they're not scoring touchdowns, they're usually scoring field goals and stuff, and we're slowly seeing these kicker prices increase. Like we're at 54, 5,000 here. I think they were in the 5s last week. When the year started, they were still in the 4s. I think until they get to like backup QB prices, I think they should be priced at 6K. I don't know if they will be, but I like at least having 22 to 26% of the kickers in these situations.
Yeah, so I want to address Thursday nights. I think this is an important thing. One thing I always do, and sometimes just a fraction of a point. We're not talking about a huge amount. I always tend to bump up running backs, backup running backs, and I always tend to bump up the kicker, and I always tend to bump up the defenses on Thursdays. Short weeks start to eat at you throughout the season. It's really hard to play a game Sunday and then a game Thursday, and we see a lot more usage for the backup running backs. Backup tight ends you could throw in the mix as well, but those sort of play for any showdown slate, in my opinion. And then the other one, what was the other? Yeah, those are the main ones: kickers, defenses, and backup running backs. Those are the ones that I lower the quarterbacks almost every single time. One thing I did tonight, I'm Xing Carson Wentz out. 0 captains for me for Xing for him. And Eric, I'd be happy to talk about Aaron Jones. What I'm not going to do on these shows anymore is start when people come and say, hey, what's the ownership on this? What's the ownership on this? I don't want to give away free stuff anymore. I want us to be, look, we're selling our product. We're promoting it. We like doing the free shows, but we really can't just be we did that for a while and people come on and say, what does SaberSim have this? What does SaberSim have this? What does SaberSim have? I'm not going to just repeat what projected ownerships are. I will talk about what I like, but I'm not going to talk about I'm not going to try and give away the product for free, basically. Exactly is what I'm saying. Anyway. All right. So, I mean, I actually agree with a lot of what you said, Brandon, about this slate. Like I'm very spread out. Like I said, I don't usually do that. I will sometimes take a stand on things. I am Xing out Carson Wentz as a captain. He'll probably end up in my utility, and I will have less than I'm putting a max on him in the utility. I want to have less of him. I actually feel like the Chargers defense is going to get to him tonight, and they've been bad. But I don't think Wentz is very good either on a short week. I just feel like this. I hate to say this. I'm not rooting for an injury, but it feels like the game where he's going to get injured. I know it sounds nuts. No problem, Eric. By the way, just wanted to throw that out there. I just if he beats me, so be it. And I'm going to be under the weight on Herbert, which means I'm going to be underweight on Herbert as captain. I'm going to be all over the other ones. Justin Jefferson, I don't think is getting enough ownership at captain, actually. And I like Quentin Johnston a ton, whereas everybody's going to McConkey and Keenan Allen, it seems like. They're projected so much better than Quentin Johnston. I think Quentin Johnston is going to have a game more often as often as these guys. And factoring the ownership, if not more often, I mean, he's been the better receiver than them. He just had an injury. So I'm looking at my ownership right now, captain. I have probably a little too much Jordan Mason right now. I've got Jordan Mason, Justin Jefferson, Justin Herbert. Then I've got I actually have 10% of each of Quentin Johnston, McConkey, and Keenan Allen. I do have Quentin Johnston much more in my utility for what it's worth. And Eric's all over the Vikings. Okay. I personally like the Chargers tonight. And I think the Chargers defense, I actually have 6% as a captain, which I don't usually do. But Wentz, we know what kind of mistakes he can make. And by the way, I like the KC, the Minnesota defense. We've seen Herbert make just a million mistakes lately. So that's sort of a little rundown of things. Also Gadsden's not getting any love. I think you should get Gadsden a little more love in the captain. That was my other one. But I'm sort of with you with the spreading out at captain today. What about in the flex in terms of your highest ownership levels?
I mean, it's probably going to be Herbert just because I have one of his pass catchers and all of these. But so I've played a lot of Jefferson this year. Like every slate he's been on, like the London game and other things. So I think I've watched like every Vikings game this year, and this offense is horrible. I typically don't let past performances really bother me, but I haven't seen literally any of the QB play that gives me any faith in Jefferson actually scoring well today. They just haven't been making throws to him. I mean, obviously they have, but they haven't been making the huge ones and stuff. Even the 25-6 when he was at Pittsburgh, if you're, I would, he had 11 targets, 10 catches, and only 126 yards. He's only scored one touchdown this year. I don't know what the Vikings have been doing. I just, this is just one where I really kind of want to be LA heavy. Now, I don't purposely go out of my way to make 4 2s and 5 1s for a specific team. I just kind of let them happen here. But I'm assuming that's what the field's going to do today due to the value that we have on that side. But I like LA in this game. I think the Vikings kind of get slaughtered.
Yeah. And I was just talking to Jason in the chat in the Discord because somebody saying, "Oh, I lost last night when I used these projections." Don't ever look at one thing. One thing you should learn from a DFS player: you should plan to lose most nights.
Also, I wasn't going to mention that, but he did the thing we're talking about here is an individual who entered 150 lines and only lost $600 on a slate. That's a good night.
That's good for a losing night. That's a really good losing night. But yeah, you don't ever want to think about that kind of sample size. That's terrible. And by the way, I mean, again, before I won the million, I had lost basically every day for a month straight. I don't know what happened to Brandon.
I didn't mean to do
that. Basically every day for a month straight. I had lost until I won that tournament the other night or finished second. I had lost for the last 3 weeks straight. No, I had one win in there. So, I mean, look, that's what happens. That's DFS. You should be expecting to lose most nights. You never want to be and by the way, if you're winning most nights, a little bit, you're probably doing something wrong with your process. It's like poker. We used to say that with tournaments. If you're min cashing all the time, you're not doing something right. You know what I mean? You should have enough chips to go a little further anyway. All right. Eric's asking, how are tight ends still a thing in showdowns? What about some Hawkins? Are tight ends still a thing in showdowns? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I saying like I said, I mean, that's why I'd be concerned about TJ with just how much the Vikings have been I know McCarthy was rough, right? He had no offensive line to really work with, but I think Carson Wentz might actually be worse at this point.
Carson Wentz, they're the best quarterbacks other than Kyle Shanahan, not Mike Shanahan. Other than Kyle Shanahan, this is the best quarterbacks coach you could ever have in Minnesota. Not to mention they have an insane amount of weapons out there. And he's the reason. Like Carson Wentz on any other team would have literally been like dead and gone from the NFL from by now. Like he's only hanging in there because the system is built for him and he's got awesome weapons. He's really bad. And look, doesn't mean he can't be DFS viable at times. That's a totally different thing. But he's been terrible. He's always been terrible, to be honest. And he had that one pretty good year with the Eagles where he got hurt and people are saying he's the best player in football. And then what happens when he gets hurt? Backup quarterback, they go win the Super Bowl, they beat the Patriots. So Carson Wentz is even his good times in the NFL. Where I've always been an anti-Wentz guy.
Yeah. Anyway, I bring that up, specifically for the Hawkinson thing. Like he's at a really low ADOT, and I typically don't like, even if he has a high volume, I really don't want to play captains that have a low average depth of target. I really like to try and get guys who are going to, be either they have a high volume or they're catching, long pass or whatever. You look at TJ's, and yet again, I really don't try to just look at the log. But as I said, at least I think this is a bit of a different situation just because I've been able to watch this offense the whole year. Like anytime they've thrown to TJ, it's been super short yardage. And it's really, even if he gets a touchdown, it's really difficult to have a captain unless, we have a very expensive slate. It's really, really hard to have a captain that has very low ADOT end up being an optimal captain. I don't mind him in flex. Whatever I get of TJ, I get, but I would not play him in flex. I just don't like Miami's offense at all today. Minnesota's.
Yeah, I'm interested because the Chargers defense has been much worse than they were supposed to be. Or than they looked the last couple of weeks. They've looked awful, but I mean, Indianapolis lights everybody up. And Eric's asking, was Curtin and Gents number one? No, he was not number one. He was a number 2 overall pick, though. He was number 2 overall pick to Jared Goff. And do we sell? Who do we sell our soul to go run on the run Brandon has? I asked Brandon. Brandon, who do we sell our soul to get what you got going?
Dude, I don't know. I've been grinding DFS since I turned 18.
And the year of the good guy. How about we say it that way?
And I think I literally just got lucky on that first one, and I've just been able to actually survive downswings with a bankroll. I'm using our tools. I'm using our projections, and I'm really not even changing stuff, especially for NHL and basketball. I don't change anything, and I've really, really gotten away from having any actual input on my exposure rates at all. For football, I still, I still choose my captains because I just like showdown. I like that. I like the DFS contest of showdowns and stuff, and I think I have an edge there. But on like actual slates, I'm not touching a darn thing. I'm just using, our stuff, and I'm running what it's given us.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And again, I do things a lot differently than most people do, but I spent my whole life and I watch every game, you know what I mean? So if you're going to put your takes in, and also even that took me a long, long time before I could figure out how to kind of combine the two with the between the using Saber Sim and then using all the contest sims. I mean, I come back from the old school of DFS days where I only hand built anything and nobody had anything else. That was what we did. No, we're talking about Justin. We're using Saber Sim with different projection sets. Goldie's projections, Sheets' projections. We have a very different way of doing things.
AD asked that. Oh yeah, abnormal. 80's cool. 80's cool.
Yeah. I think it was a nice. I hope you didn't. I thought it was a nice question, so I'm glad it seemed.
No, I was just reading chat. I didn't know who answered it. Yeah, 80, he's a good guy.
And to answer Justin's, we use TrueDFS. That's what I'm telling everybody. Like that's what we do. We have different ways of doing things, and again, I change my projections myself. Like I said, the only sport I don't use Sheets and Goldies for as a baseline. I use it as like a reference point. But the only sport I don't use it for is NBA because of the late swap being and just the late news being such an impossible thing to handle.
I do want to bring up Saber Sim, not in terms of a shortcoming thing, but why I think it's drastically important. Now, yet again, I mean, we're a smaller site, right? Yeah. And we don't have everybody on our site playing every sport. But if you, and I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of an example to really or like solidify this and stuff, but I'm going to talk through it. When you look at, ownership, especially ownership projections, like that's really what matters. Player projections don't really mean anything. Everything's pretty accurate nowadays, but the ownership is actually what matters. If you're running a Sims tool, whether it's SaberSim or your own or wherever, right? If let's use SaberSim's numbers, for example. If there's a lot of people using SaberSim stuff, now they obviously have some proprietary stuff on the back end to make sure that every user isn't getting, a very similar output and stuff. But you gain a pretty significant advantage if you're using a tool that everybody's using, but you're using a different input, especially in the ownership column. Now you could say that for any site and stuff, but the fact that we have two projection sources that we use that really nobody else is using in the grand scheme of things, as I said,
nobody has access to them.
Yeah. So like if I'm using Sheets' ownership and I'm in a contest, let's say like with 4 people, right? And those 3 people are using SaberSim stuff, whether Sheets is right or not, it's already off of what the other 3 people are using. Now, yet again, I found a lot of success using his stuff in, drastically different sports. It might be related to just having a different projection set than what other people are using. I mentioned this in NASCAR and stuff. If there's people who don't know what they're doing, and I'm probably in the same situation, like playing these sports that I really don't know the players on. But if you just jump into, SaberSim, you run their stuff, that's it. I think you're leaving a lot on the table, even if you don't know, like college football, for example. Not a lot of people have projections for that. We don't even have that either. But the people who play college football, if you have your own projection set, like that's a significant advantage over the field that is primarily using 1 or 2 data sources based on whatever website they're using. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense or if I'm explaining that correctly.
I understand what you're saying.
But yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'll take a quick moment just because I'm going to just throw out a few NBA guys because that I felt like the projections looked a little off to me. Partly because I got like every one right the other day, even though I still got crushed. All the guys I was like, this projection seems crazy. This projection seems crazy. Now this is a median projection, so it doesn't mean they're always going to put up that number. Anyway, I did want to throw out though that I think that Ben Mathurin, I'm expecting a big year out of him. Chet, I felt like he's being underprojected a little bit. I think Jamal Murray being underprojected a little bit. I think Jimmy Butler, I can't say it's overprojected. Like it wouldn't surprise me if he hits the number, but I think we're judging on too small a sample size. I prefer being a little underweight his projection. I prefer being a little underweight Isaiah Hartenstein's projection. Those were the ones that sort of stood out to me, but the significant ones being Mathurin and Holmgren. Partly and Jokic. Jokic should never be projected below 60 as a median. And if he ever is, it's a mistake, in my opinion.
So, I'm obviously we're, 50 or so minutes away from that first NBA game. And obviously, I want to make sure I have the starting lines and everything, right? But this is a situation where I don't want to play the main showdown towards the evening because I think Jokic is the captain. Very similar to like Luka last night. Whenever a great player like that, they're typically going to be needed as the captain, and then the game is just trying to build the lineup with whoever ends up fitting there. So I actually like the 2-game slates more that Jokic is on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, just based on everything, in terms of what his ceiling performances is, I mean, I always just, have like Jokic in my mind to score 70 regardless of what's going on. And if he doesn't, I get beat. But I'm probably just going to play 100% Jokic tonight, just because he's by and far the best player on the slate. Denver runs through him, even if they lose or whatever.
For showdown,
or for the classic.
For the but you were saying captain. That's why. Sorry.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're playing the show, you just have to play captain, or you have to play Jokic. I mean, yesterday's showdown with the Lakers and stuff. Let me look at this. I think it was 50% Luka. And the captain. And normally, when you see situations like that, you don't. It might be the night before. I don't remember.
Yeah, the night before.
Typically, if let me bring this up. If the field, let's see here. Yeah, so the field, 97% of the people drafted Luka in that showdown, and 50.8 had him in the captain. When someone's going to be scoring that much, you need an injury. You don't even need him underperforming. You need Luka to get injured. So I don't really see a reason to not have that player in the captain.
Okay, I'll play devil's advocate because
Yeah.
I've won 100,000 plus a couple times with doing the opposite kind of a thing in the playoffs, especially playing the super cheap guy who's going to get you 25 or somewhere in that range. If it means you can get access to the 5 highest scoring other players on the slate, that's sometimes the only way you can get exposure to them. There was a guy who won the million in showdown for, I think it was not a playoff game, but it was a $1 million showdown for some reason. Maybe it was the start of the year. They played a guy who didn't even dress. They captained the guy, Josh Gordon. And with a captain, they did that. 1 minute, I got to get the door. Brandon, do you mind taking
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I know Bobby's talking about that story. I would rather, because I did this in single entry stuff. I would rather take the 0 in the flex position versus the captain position. I know that guy. A lot of people talk about that one situation. I'm just gonna say if that happens, he's gonna beat me. I'm not taking the 0 in the captain. I typically want the guy who's gonna score the most here. In terms of late swap for this NBA game, I mean, we have one at 6:30, one at 9. You're kind of going to be locked into whatever you end up playing. And if you're late swapping in a situation like this, you probably have lineups that have a lot of people who are underperforming. Or if you're late swapping, you're specifically getting off of chalk pieces. So a 2-gamer like this, I don't envision myself having a lot of late swap stuff. As I said, if I'm playing, Jokic, right? Let's say I'm probably gonna have him in utility because I'm assuming I'm gonna need value in the center by either Hartstein or Holmgren or even Green. Why are there so many greens in this, dude?
Yeah, that's a lot.
But there's no real reason for me to pivot down off of Jokic, because I'm assuming all my value and stuff is going to come from the first game. And even still, I'm probably going to have SGA and stuff. There's no reason to go from Jokic at 11.5 to Steph Curry at 9,000, because I just don't think Steph Curry is going to outscore Jokic. I'm not saying he can't, but realistically, he's not going to. So a slate like this, I just don't think late swapping is as needed, which, going back.
You still should do it. I just want to say you should still do it.
Yeah, you should.
You never know if somebody ends up, spraining an ankle and things like that happen. So if you want to be able to account for, you might be playing a guy who doesn't even play if you don't do it. That's the only thing I wanted to remind people.
Oh yeah.
There is some danger, for sure. But I also did want to say, and so Brandon's playing 100% Jokic. He says I'm not playing 100% Jokic. I actually think center was terrible yesterday, and we kind of knew it was, and it was great it was like you had to play the double centers on Tuesday. I think today's another one of those days. Hartenstein with basically everybody hurt for OKC. By the way, I love Indiana to win tonight. I love Indiana to win plus 250. Jesus, give me that. I think it's a great bet. I also like Denver to beat Golden State. So I like the underdogs. But in terms of this whole thing, Isaiah Jackson might put up a big number at a cheap price. Jalen Williams with a Y might get more involved. I already mentioned the Hartenstein one. I think it even look, Jokic is human. He might pick up a couple fouls. They probably still leave him out there and he does his thing, but it's not a playoff game. There's no reason Joval couldn't give him some extra rest and go nuts off the bench. I even like to get to a little bit of Joval tonight. So I guess it's maybe not quite as loaded as I thought, but I really do think that the Hartenstein, Jackson, and Jokic are all terrific plays.
So, and answering Jason, I think if whatever you're playing, I think you play 100% of Jokic. Before even this year, I went on a run during playoff NBA. I think either last year or the year before, just playing the Nuggets every night. I just played 100%.
But remember though, the playoffs are completely different.
But if Jokic is on the slate on something like this, I usually just go all in. But I wanted to bring up something that has nothing to do with DFS. I wanted your opinion on this, Bobby. What do you think of Jokic working during the offseason with refs to better not getting fouled?
To better not getting fouled?
Yeah,
that's not my understanding.
he had they would do like games with like with NBA refs, and he was getting feedback on what would be a foul and what wouldn't be. Do you think that has
Oh
any?
yeah, no, he's just trying to make sure what calls he's going to get and everything. It's pretty much like that kind of stuff is the kind of narratives I don't exactly usually buy overly into. If somebody's like Wemby working out with Akeem in the offseason, that was something I bought into. Like I buy into that. This is one, it doesn't make a difference to me. Jokic is always just awesome, you know. I don't think it's really going to make any sort of a major difference. But I like that he's always trying to improve his game. But that's pretty much it. I didn't take much out of that.
Gotcha.
Personally, I think the sneaky thing this year, and by the way, I do think there is paths for Jokic to not get there. I don't agree that this is like some lock thing personally. I think Jamal Murray being healthy at the beginning of the year for like the first time ever is something to look out for, and partly why I'm a very big Murray fan tonight. And I think this might be his first. He's never played in an All-Star game because the West is always so loaded. This might be the year where he does. I don't want to get into the gambling and in sports and basketball until I have better understand more, Eric. It's not really the Rozier thing. It's really a whole bunch of other things that does dive into politics in a way that I really don't want to talk about. And I just say it's a very corrupt world, and trying to go after others' bizarre corruptions as the priority doesn't make sense to me. I don't really want to get into Rozier. I don't really know how to say much about it yet. I'd like to formulate my thoughts a little better before I address everything that happened today as far as the gambling with Rozier, and then obviously with Billups. Anyway, all right. I think we're probably pretty good to go soon, Brandon. Anything else you want to throw out to people, or any questions anybody has before we get out of here on the Eater slate?
I don't think so. NBA locks in 43 minutes. I'll probably make my lineups in like 35. If something for whatever reason my stuff shows to not play Jokic, obviously I'm going to trust whatever my stuff shows. But I'm assuming I'm going to get, like, when I ran stuff earlier, I had like 83% Jokic, so I'm assuming it's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I've got 67%. It's not like I'm definitely above. I'll be above the field, or probably with the field on him.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have anything else.
Yeah. Good job, man. This was fun to talk about. I know I was sort of talking at 10 million miles an hour because got some good things. Oh, All-Star DFS asking favorite 3 captains. I'll answer the favorite 3 captains tonight. On DraftKings, my highest owned captains currently, I'll get there in a second, are Quentin John. Well, he's not my highest, but are Jefferson, Herbert, and Quentin Johnston. That's where I'm at. Getting a little bit off the board with some of the other guys. Jordan Mason, Jordan Addison, a little under on McConkey and Vidal and Allen, just because they're gonna have so much ownership. I like Gadsden as another contrarian one. Those are the ones I like. I like Johnston a lot. Oh, there we go. Rody likes Johnston too.
I do want to add one thing, because how many people we got watching? 34. One thing that I did when I was focusing on my play and stuff for DFS is I would look at the players in the sport, specifically NASCAR. So that's what I focus on. Oddly enough, that's been my worst sport this year. But I would pull the CSVs from the contest. Like, look at what the DFS player that whoever you want to look at, or you want to look at mine, whatever. Pull the CSV from the contest and look at the exposure rates that player is using, that DFS player is using. That was probably the biggest strength that I learned or looked at is, back when Osmo was playing a lot, which I guess Osmo's back. He's not, he took a bit of a time off, but you see him, especially in the NFL lobbies now. But I was pulling Osmo stuff. I was pulling Joe Schroeder stuff at NASCAR, Stukas' stuff. People that I like their approach, or if I see them having a lot of success, I pull their lineups and I compare them to whatever I had, and I don't really look to see if they specifically worked or not in that lineup. I think that might be short-sighted, but I look at where my portfolio was different from theirs. Like, for whatever reason, if I was playing 20 lineups and I was looking at a pro who had 150, where did they take a stance that I didn't, even if I had a small portfolio and stuff. I would do that if you're seriously looking to have an idea of what people are doing. And it helps a lot more than just, hopping on a stream and like, I like Jokic today, right? But if something changes or whatever, and I don't play a lot of Jokic, if you pull my stuff, you'll probably see where, for whatever reason I don't have him in a lot, what player did I use that possibly pushed him out, what salaries. Was I using? Like, I think that's a tool that not a lot of people take full advantage of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's helpful. I'm going to Eric says he likes Aaron Jones. I'm going to agree with Eric that I think Aaron Jones is a sneaky play. It's a tough one to work. Exactly. We don't really know what's happening, but that's what you should be embracing, right? We should be embracing the variance. And hey, look, if everyone's playing Jordan Mason and you're playing him, you're going to be a little bit different. So I kind of like the idea of getting to. Why are we assuming Jordan Mason has the exact same role? We'll probably hear more in the next few minutes, probably about what's going to happen there, but that is interesting to me. I'm on board with this Aaron Jones being an interesting play take. Mm-hmm. So, all right, man. Thanks so much, Brandon. Thanks so much to all you guys. Please hit a like on the way out and give TrueDFS a look. We've been doing really well, and hopefully you guys are.